So all those other incriminating things we said are also recorded somewhere, is what you're saying.
Okay.
We're going to have a Super Pulp Science archive.
Oh, no.
Right? Of black tapes.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
Okay, this is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre is made, and today we're going to talk about where you can take it. We are here with Dan Vadeboncoeur, who fills two roles on our podcast. He is our technical director here.
That's not the right term.
That's not the term. What is our term?
Producer. I'm a producer.
He's a producer. He is the producer of our podcast. He taught us everything there is to know about podcasts, and he is also the showrunner of FanQuest.
That's not a right term either, but that's okay.
What is the term you want to use?
I don't want to use the term. We all kind of collectively say founder in our
founder.
Our committee.
Let's start that again.
No,
We're here with Dan Vadeboncoeur.
Why'd you even come today, Greg? This is terrible.
Justin, you're going to start.
We're with Dan and Greg and me, Justin.
I was gonna say, the titles aren't really what matters. I know some people do focus on that more, but we really try to run the event as a committee, and every decision we take to each other and get feedback on. Now, I was the person who kind of set it all in motion, so I guess, take some credit for that, being the one that brought all these people together and said, hey, let's make something, let's have an event. And so I was the first person on that list, I guess.
You were the grit that made the oyster? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
good.
good.
I don't get that reference, but that's okay.
What? It's a little grit inside an oyster that makes a pearl.
I don't really like oysters.
No?
What?
But you're such a pearl. You're such a pearl. Okay, what we're going to talk about here today on Super Pulp Science is shows. We use the term show a lot in our show, but what we mean by show is a comic con or event. And
we also do craft fairs and book signings and Comic-Cons
and book events and
horror conventions, gaming conventions.
Yes.
So it's kind of...
That's right. But we're going to talk about comic conventions and where they came from, why they're important to us, and why we think they're important to both fandom in general and the industry specifically.
Let's turn the clock back to 10, 15 years ago. What was a Comic-Con back then? Greg, you're elderly.
Right.
Tell us about the good old days.
Well, Sonny. Okay, well, what's interesting to me about that question is that in Canada and the U.S., the answer would be very different.
Right.
In Canada, 15 years ago, if there was a comic show at all, it was in the basement of a hotel. Or in a single event space in a single hotel room. And you might have maybe a couple dozen vendors selling comic books.
No artists, probably.
You would very rarely have people who just make art. You would have a few comic book artists, certainly, and maybe the odd comic book writer. And if they did come, they were like a big deal guest. You had a few tables pushed together. You had a few hundred people milling around. And it was people celebrating their love of comic books as a medium, specifically.
But there were also still Star Trek and that kind of stuff conventions going on. Like there were still genre specific or even intellectual property specific.
Absolutely true. Do you think though? Would you characterize them as also being small like that, though?
Well, I think the Trek conventions were much, much bigger.
In Canada?
Well, if there were any, it would be in Toronto or Vancouver, in a bigger city, certainly not here in Winnipeg. Right. And here, it has to be combined with something else for people to kind of go to it.
So when we fast forward to the future, to the present, I guess, in this particular instance, the future is yet unknowable.
Don't you write stories about time travel?
I do. I'm caught because we can travel wherever we want in those stories. The present day shows can have up to 150,000 people.
The biggest shows do. San Diego and New York are the two biggest, right?
They seem to be going neck and neck. And in North America, when you get into overseas, like the Comic-Cat coming up in a couple weeks has like a million.
Yeah,
it's a million people attend that.
Whoa.
The
Where's
Paris, Comic-Con in Tokyo.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Which our
Okay.
friend Andrea Tam is going to have a table there with her
I
brand
should
new.
tell my brother to go. My brother lives
comic.
in Japan.
Yeah.
He lives in Nagano, but he could take a train to Tokyo.
Yeah.
I'll tell him
So
to go.
here we have this thing that's happened, dear listeners, where it used to be that if you liked stuff, you might gather in small groups and talk about it. And now if you like stuff, with the advent of, I think, some things have changed, social media, the internet,
Movies were a big
Netflix,
thing,
movies, all of these things that have given people a flag to stand under. People bring those flags now in droves of thousands to these shared events to celebrate, to capitalize, and to commiserate with each other over what makes good storytelling. What was your first show, Dan?
So I went to it must have been 2007, so 10 years ago now. It was called the Manitoba Comic Con at the time, and it was at the Victoria Inn. And it was one of the last years that it was there. Then a couple of years later, it moved. I think it was 2009.
2008 it was, because that was my very first show I attended, or like I had a table at that one, and it was in the convention center
And
for the
2008.
first time.
2008. So that was the last year it was at the Victoria Inn, because it was there for a while. And you're right, it did start out as in a basement of a hotel, and then kind of grew and grew. And at the time, they've got a pretty big space in that hotel, so it's bigger than most. And I've looked into this as from a venue booking point of view. And so, yeah, I went there, and I'd never been to a Comic-Con. I'd heard about it through a friend. I saw a poster. I'm like, oh, this is all stuff I love. I think I'll really enjoy this. And I did absolutely love it. I went there and just kind of walked around, talked to everybody. I knew a surprising amount of people there that I didn't know were going to be there. I just ran into them on the floor. So these were all people that I'd known and I knew loved these things as well. And I met David Proust, which was a pretty exciting thing for me at the time. And he was, he's Darth Vader. So that was also a nice moment. So it was a very nice event. I really, really enjoyed it. And it kind of got me, it just opened my eyes as far as what is possible with these shows.
And it puts you right, like within 6 feet of the makers. Right?
That's right. Yeah, that's
the
right.
idea machines are there.
Yeah.
And their little skulls just on the other side.
And there were, now from what I remember, there were not as many. Now, I wasn't really aware of the artist side of your side of things at the time. I remember seeing a lot of vendors, a lot of merchandise there, comic books, of course. My uncle Nick was there, Nicholas Burns, who's a comic book creator, and he'd been doing that for a while, apparently. And so I just talked to him for a while, and then I just kind of walked around the floor. I did not go into any programming. I didn't know if there was programming. I didn't know anything about that stuff. And so that was something I discovered later on and has become a really important part of a convention to me, is the programming side of things.
Right.
So, yeah, that was it. That was my first one.
As an attendee.
Were you at that same one, Greg? Were you there?
No, I think my first show.
Were you in San Diego in 2007?
Yeah, like the show. Okay, like shows that I attended versus shows that I exhibited at. I think my first exhibitor show technically would be KeyCon of 2006 or 7. And then 2008 is when I really endeavored to hit shows. So your first real show and my first real show are the same show.
You
As
had
vendors.
an
As vendors.
annoyingly large setup compared to me at your first show.
Well,
You seem like the biggest deal on the floor.
I'd been hanging out with these like TV people, and their attitude had been, if you want people to pay attention, you should have a big presence, because no one's ever heard of a show when you're trying to promote it. And at that time, I was working on the ill-fated but very fun to work on web serial The Dark, which never took off like it should, but the core crew of people that worked on it actually I still collaborate with today. So no love lost there. But we had been promoting this show, and so I thought that's just what you did. And since we were having a comic show coming up, I assumed everyone else would do that too. And I thought that I would be like the little guy, I was like, oh, well, my banner only goes up to 10 feet. And oh, I only have, this little book display. And oh, I only have these T-shirts and and then I got there and I was like, oh my gosh, why is everyone staring at me?
So what did everybody else have?
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
What did you have, Justin?
Everybody else just put, if they had a portfolio, they plopped it on the table, and then the really, really fancy artists had stands with their book or their print standing upright on their table. The comic book guests, like the really, really big deals, had retractable banners behind them. And that was the extent of what people did in 2008.
And those were guys who were people who were brought in by the con to, like, artists who were well known for their work on bigger titles, and who traveled from con to con. Were there mostly local people at the first event for you, or was it a mix?
It was a mix. It was a pretty big artist alley in 2008.
It was,
as I
because
recall.
it was also the convention center.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of room.
Yes.
And they brought in a lot of people, and they had, I think, doubled down a little bit as far as the investment they were making in the show to bring in guests.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and there I was in my giant Ziggurat. I'd also asked
How many tables did you have?
I'd asked for 3 tables, which I also didn't know wasn't the done thing. Right? Like,
so like max 2 tables is what you asked
usually
for?
you just have one. Usually you just book one table, but I didn't know
I
that.
shared a table with another artist.
Right? Which that turned out to be the done thing, but compared to the marketing expense of trying to get a television show made, right? Booking 3 tables at a show and making some stand-up banners didn't, to me, seem like a huge outlay of expenses, right? If you want people to notice what you're doing. Little did I know when I arrived that would inadvertently make it seem like I knew what I was doing. Right? So that's the first show that
you did know what you were doing. Just you were coming at it from a different angle, and that helped you. I think that having that experience with the television show helped you market yourself as an artist better than, because a lot of people, I'm sure, coming to these cons for the first time they know how to create great work, they know how to create great art and great stories. They don't know how to market themselves, and that's something I find as an instructor in creative communications at Red River College. A lot of our students struggle with the idea of marketing themselves because they spend all their time creating something, and they just want to be like, okay, now I'm just going to put it out there and see how people like it, instead of getting people to pay attention to them. And then now more than ever, especially like in the difference of 10 years, you absolutely have to do that now at a con, in online world, anywhere. You have to like say, hey, look at me, and kind of and draw people to you.
Be blown away.
Yeah, or you'll just be lost in the mess.
Yeah, because now a 10-foot banner at a show is like small fry stuff.
If
you're not at 15 feet, and if you're not 15 feet by 15 feet with a huge backdrop, people won't even notice you.
One of the things I liked most about FanQuest last year, or this year was in May, when we did it, is that we had a lot of our prices were pretty low for tables, and we just kind of priced it out so that the tables would cover the cost of the venue. We weren't really in it to make a lot of money, which and so we did have quite a few people who came on who said that it was their first time tabling at a convention.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I thought that was excellent. I'm like, great. Yeah. And then so I put out a survey. I said, but we wanted all the spaces to look professional. We wanted them to look more like you guys, because I'd seen your setups at other conventions, and I was surprised at how many of them had already taken that into consideration.
Yeah.
Based on, I guess, going to conventions, seeing what you guys had done and other artists similar to you had done. So people are now coming into this world having an idea of what you need to do to stand out, which is good.
Super Pope.
I want to talk about the evolution of displays for a second here.
Justin was there when it first happened, ladies and gentlemen.
I watched
Didn't you help like usher that in with you got a nice, huge display.
But all my ideas were kind of riffing off other people. I don't think I really did anything that wasn't kind of already being done before.
You just had the best surfboard. So as the wave was cresting, right, you just surfed right to the top.
So when I started out, I had my portfolio, and I had my displays kind of standing my prints upright. Eventually, I got banner stand money. So I made a banner stand that sat behind me, went 6 feet high, and said Chase Artwork at that point. It wasn't Chasing Artwork. It was Chase Artwork.
Whoa.
And then from there, I started seeing what everybody was doing. What the done thing was you went to a hardware store and you got PVC pipe. Is that PVC pipe? You would get cut PVC pipes, dozens of them, and all these little connectors, and you would construct this arch over your table, and then you would paste your prints on that, and you'd leave a little window open so you could peek out from your artwork and sell your artwork. Yeah, and
Would
that
you like
was
some art?
That was kind of the thing that was starting to take over. Everybody was getting these
It was DIY.
PVC.
It was DIY time at the comic
and
show.
now there are like whole kits and everything you guys can just probably buy online.
You can, but the truth is, the secret weapon of the comic show dear listeners, is the photography stand.
Photography stand.
Photography stand is lightweight. It's telescoping. You can use it for all kinds of purposes. It's stable because it's a tripod. If you're feeling like it's not very stable, it's very easy to duct tape it to the show floor, which is usually concrete, so that it's super stable. And now you have this mast to tie your sails to, if you will.
Very cool. Interesting.
Not everyone has figured that out, so hopefully more people will hear this and do that. Now, I don't say because like their setup is bad, but because for sheer portability, the photography stand can't be beat. These PVC monstrosities that people build, it's super fun to watch them put it together.
Usually at least one will fall over per show.
Yeah.
During setup, there will be at least one mass collapse.
Yeah.
Do they still do that? Do people still do this?
Some people do, yeah.
Some people still do.
They don't want to change what worked for them, I guess. So they lovingly construct a new PVC tower each time, and then it falls over, and they cry sometimes.
The other part of this is you have to stitch together a quilt of your artwork, right? You have this now 8 foot like bare bones behind you, and now you have to start taping all your artwork to it. And a lot of people use painter's tape, like green or blue tape, because the idea there is it will not wreck the print. You can use those prints again and again and again. The problem there is that tape's not overly strong. So often during the show, you'll see displays start to fall apart. The prints start to like come off at the top or completely collapse under their own weight.
And why this is a bigger problem than you think it is because during setup, everyone has lots of room to move around. You can move around in the front of the aisle, the back of the aisle. You can push your table around. You can do whatever. But once the show has started, now you're in your 6x8 footprint and you can't move.
Yeah.
So there's no fixing something that's fallen down.
That's something that came up. We did a bit of feedback after our first convention and got some feedback from the artists and vendors, and a lot of them said, I couldn't. I mean, I think this is pretty common at shows. You can't get out of your space once you're in there.
Right.
You usually have to walk down like it's and I set it up based on what I'd seen at other conventions, and it's like kind of like this island, especially the ones in the middle. Yeah. It's this island of tables that you have it kind of set up a certain way, and then you have to walk. If you're stuck in the middle, you have to walk all the way down to the end of the row to get out. And that was so we'll correct that going forward. So we learn from our mistakes, obviously, but I was figuring out that other people.
Yeah, and I always push my table back.
You do it, I see you do that. Yeah.
So that the background, like what was normally, would sort of be backstage, where people put their chairs and their snacks and their
garbage
and stuff and their garbage and whatever. I just push my table into that backstage area. And then sit out front to do my sketching.
And it's a little more inviting. I think it's like you're saying, "Hey, come on in." It's like, "This is my space. Come on in." That's what I get from your vibe.
It definitely is that for me because I like people, so I want them. And people are welcome to linger is sort of how I want them to feel. In our previous episode, we talked a little bit about booth barnacles. You can see that episode for that. I actually maybe am the worst advocate for booth barnacles because I like it if people want to stay for a while. But it's a double-edged sword for me. The reason I did it to begin with was I was so trapped behind the table and I felt so constricted and so at the mercy of everybody else's good graces if I needed to move back and forth. They were always like, excuse me. That I just wanted to remove myself from that scenario where I might be in someone else's way or have to get in their way going back and forth. So if I was sitting in the front, I could be with the people.
When was the first show you did that? When did you start trying that out?
It was a local show. The first time it happened to me, no, I'm lying. The first time I ever did that was in Calgary at When Words Collide.
Okay.
And it was because they didn't have a spot for me.
Oh.
And it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't like a malicious move to like try and bump them out. It was that they didn't think that myself as a graphic novelist would want to do a regular signing. I think it was just an oversight.
Okay.
They just figured like the way the authors sign, they'll do that, but you're not really an author, so we won't put a spot for you. But when I showed up and said, hi, I write too.
There are words in these books.
I also have pictures. They were like, oh my gosh, like they was like, I don't know what we're gonna do because we have these spots sort of assigned, and I was like, oh, I'll just sit right here. I'll do it right here. And I guess I was so confident about that statement, no matter whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. They said, okay, and they just brought me a chair, and now I was on the wrong side of the table.
Okay.
But I was drawing in the books. I was sketching in them because I didn't have a lineup. No one knew who I was, I was like, oh, well, as long as I'm here. Oh, I don't have any paper. I'll just draw in the front of this book. Someone asked me, does that come with every you do a drawing with every book? And like a bolt of lightning, right? It struck me. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And suddenly people didn't care whether they'd ever heard of the book, whether they knew who I was. The fact that I could do this sort of magic trick for them in the front cover, suddenly I had a lineup. And it was an amazing revelation for me that maybe the book and the experience of getting a book are two separate things that people are willing to put their hard-earned money down on.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think part of the draw of a convention from the attendees' point of view, and having only been to a handful as an attendee, I quickly moved over to the organizer side of it because I loved it so much. But it is about the experience. It's about sharing the experiences with other people, about celebrating our fandoms, whatever it is, be it fandoms of your characters or all the characters that we grew up with. But the experience should be something interesting and different that you can go home and talk to other people about, or even meet up with your friends later on at the convention and say, guess what I just did? I had GMB Chamichek draw a sketch for me in the book. Look at this. And then you get that kind of experience for it. So that is a great way to come at it.
Yeah.
Give people an interesting, unique experience that they're not going to get anywhere else.
But it was not a calculated move on my part to do that.
Well, many
originally.
of these things are not. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
But when it worked, I took note of it. And how it worked, it had less to do with the fact that like, oh, hey, I sold a bunch of books, and more to do with that I had this experience that I really enjoyed. People I didn't know who didn't know me, we had a few minutes together where I would ask them what kind of books they like, what kind of stuff they're into. That would inform the drawing I was doing for them a little bit. And we would have this sort of, mini interaction that was free of a lot of the social mores of the awkwardness of how you talk to an author at a table, because I was doing something that they could look at and I had to look at it too. So it wasn't this really awkward face-to-face conversation. It was sort of you, me, and this drawing for 5 or 10 minutes. And then whether you liked it or not, you at least had that honest interaction.
Exactly.
Attention, citizens.
You were starting out at shows, and you had your portfolio, and you had your stand-up. And what was the leap for you to say, I want or need to change what I'm doing?
There was, when I started doing shows, I was experimenting with style a lot. I didn't really know. I was using Photoshop. I was experimenting a little in Vector and Illustrator and stuff like that. And I was just kind of trying all kinds of different things. I was trying all kinds of different sizes. I had postcards to 11 by 17s. I had originals. I just kind of had everything splayed out on the table. There was a moment that my second year doing conventions, I'd kind of started to evolve this shattered vector style. And I had this silhouette piece of Cloud and Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII with Cloud getting stabbed by Sephiroth, this part that happens in the game.
Now internet famous piece.
Yeah.
Actually, this was before
podcast.
that. This is prior to that. This was like the first iteration. And I printed 20 out, and I sold 20 on like the first day of the show. And nothing like that had ever happened. Like, I'd had people interested in my work, but I'd never had so many people interested in one particular piece because of the style and like the subject matter. I'd never had like a piece that was on fire.
Right.
And that I tried to get a volunteer to watch my table so on Sunday I could run to Staples and print more. Staples was closed, and like I ran back.
And also Staples was Staples.
And Staples. But it was that whole like I had created a piece that everybody wanted.
Right.
And so from there, it was kind of always like chasing that next piece that's going to like light the room on fire that everybody's going to want. And every once in a while, about 2 or 3 pieces a year out of nowhere will be what everybody wants. And I never know what they're going to be until I get them to the show and expose them to the crowd.
But that happens at the show.
That happens
You
at the
don't
show.
know. You don't know. You have a new piece. You're putting it out for everyone to see.
No idea.
I think I have an idea of what the next one might be.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Based on what you just posted on Instagram, I think that might be it. But that's part of the word of mouth that happens at the show, right? So somebody comes, you kind of split up, you walk around the floor, you go when someone picks up your Sephiroth piece and brings it back to their friend. Look what I picked up. This is awesome. Look at this awesome piece of art. And they're like, oh, I want one too. So they come back and they get one from you. And the word of mouth spreads through the con like that, right? Is that an accurate statement? Would you say?
Let's talk about bags for a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bagging artists now, it's expected of them to have bags for when you buy their artwork. You bag it up and you give it to them.
Wait, let's ask
thing.
Dan a question because
Oh.
he's not keen. Let's ask him a question. If you are selling your art, do you think that you should hand your art to a customer in A, an opaque bag, or B, a clear bag?
Oh, clear, of course.
Right?
Right? Is this an issue? People don't want you using clear bags?
No, people don't realize the real power of a clear bag.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah,
Because what
for
you're
sure.
talking about requires, like when you said, like someone comes over to their friend and says, oh, this piece is great. Instead, what happens is someone in a clear bag walks through the show, and if
They're
other
now-
people see it and
Yeah.
like it, then they'll ask that person.
It is now a walking advertisement for you.
Yeah, that's
what you're
great.
capable
That's a
of
great
doing.
way to do that.
And what's interesting about it is, lots of people use clear bags. Like we are not innovators in this arena at all. But I love it too. Like I ask people, where did you get that?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did it come from? And they'll direct it. Like it works both ways. Like I find it to be a really great way in a crowded show to see what you're missing is to sit down for 2 seconds and just watch the crowd go by and see what they're carrying and see what they have. And you immediately like, oh, wow, I didn't even know,
That's
that,
also how
that
I-
Paul
I-
Pope was here.
That's how I keep an eye on how my friends are doing. If I see a lot of Greg stuff walking by, I'm like, oh, Greg's having a great show.
yeah,
If
yeah,
I see a
that's
lot
good.
of Quirkylicious stuff walking by, I'm like, Drake is killing it. Like I'm seeing nothing but his stuff
Yeah.
walk by.
If I see a lot of Justin stuff go by, I know he's buying dinner.
And I think that kind of speaks to it's a great thing that happens at conventions. But what you just said, Greg, speaks to kind of one of the issues facing conventions, and one of the ones we're trying to answer with FanQuest is that communication at a con is not great as far as what's going on at any given time. Like I said earlier, programming has become a huge thing for me. I love it so much. When I worked with I worked with C4 Central Canada Comic Con for a year, and what I did with them, I did a bunch of different stuff. But part of what I did at the shows was manage the programming, and I plan out. I did it when they didn't even ask me to. There was a smaller show, was the Pop Culture Expo, and I just went ahead, I didn't even think about it. I went ahead and planned out programming, and like, oh, I guess we should get a stage for you then, because we weren't planning on doing any.
Right.
So I said, okay, great. So
Because to you, programming is an essential component.
It's a part of the event, yeah. So
and for listeners who don't know what we mean by programming, this is where an author, an artist, a guest,
celebrity
a celebrity,
guest,
could
Usually
be anyone.
away from the dealer's room in a separate hall.
That's
where
right.
you Q&A.
Yeah, it has a Q&A, a panel, some way for them to interact to an audience, a captive audience, if you will.
Yeah.
For half an hour to an hour, and they get some insight that they wouldn't get any other way.
And I mean, for the artist or whoever it is giving the panel, hopefully it drums up some business for them. If they're like you guys and they're in Artist Alley and they've got pieces for sale, then somebody in that audience will have come in, but based on maybe the topic or something that you're talking about, and then found out about you, discovered you, and then they'll go and visit you at your table later. It is often, I've kind of discovered that it is the main, when it comes to the celebrity guests, it's one of the main drivers to get people to come up and get autographs from them. Because
Absolutely,
they always plug that at the end. They say, okay, come, I'll be upstairs for the next couple of hours. Come visit me at my table. And I know that for a lot of people,
Hey, we have a special guest
come on
just
in,
arriving
welcome.
on the podcast.
Science.
But dear listeners, we have a sudden surprise arrival at the studio because the door is usually open and wayward authors can wander in at any time.
Oh, hi.
That is Sam Beiko, who has wandered in off the street cold and alone.
First repeat guest.
Right, first repeat guest. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a fantasy author, and I do pretty much anything you can imagine that has to do with books.
Actually, I'm going to go pay for parking, so Sam's going to take over my mic.
This is
for
amazing.
For the next 10 minutes.
Good.
Perfect. All right, so Sam, what we've been talking about is what makes a good convention.
Right.
And we started off by asking people what were their early convention experiences and how that maybe colored what choices they made when they started to exhibit at shows.
Right.
So tell us about an early convention experience as an attendee.
As an attendee, wow. Well, I first started attending conventions as a fan of anime. So the first ever convention experience I had was Icon back in the day in Winnipeg when it was at the University of Manitoba. So I had absolutely no concept of what a convention was. I was just a rabid 12, 13-year-old, just like I want to consume all this media. But what was really great about Icon is that I wasn't just there to hang out in the dealer's room, which is what I usually think that people are going to cons now for nowadays. There was a lot of content that they had going on that actually was either programming or it was like
We were just talking about
Yeah.
that. as
Could
you
not
walked
have
in.
segued more beautifully into what
and they also were showing a bunch of anime. Like, so they had rented out all these classrooms with projectors and they were just showing like Miyazaki, they were showing like Akira, they were showing all this stuff that I had no exposure to at all because the internet was like brand new. And, we were trying to find anime websites by guessing addresses and URL things. So, the access to that stuff was limited. So it was really great. That was how I discovered Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli and all these other things.
So wait, hold on. I need to ask you. The first Studio Ghibli movie that you saw was at show?
Was at Icon, yeah. It was... It must have been Princess Mononoke and it was the tail end of it, so I had only seen half of it, and then I went to Jumbo Video and I rented it.
Shout out to Jumbo Video.
Shout out to
Man.
Memory
Yeah, oh,
Lane.
man.
That's the ancient times.
but it was because of an experience like that I was exposed to things that I otherwise wouldn't have been.
Right.
In a community that was very welcoming and were interested in just kind of conveying stuff, not even for personal gain or anything. It was just that everyone enjoyed something. And they
We
wanted
love
to share
it. Do you want to love it too? Kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I love the programming aspect. We were just talking about how it's for me. It's another aspect of the con that people really enjoy, and obviously that's what got you into it. But like there's some people who do come for the dealer's room, come to see the artists and the merchandise. But I think there's an equal amount of people, hopefully, that come for the programming.
I think
maybe I'm
lots of
wrong.
people
You guys
come
have
for
more
the
experience with this.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
find
I mean,
that
it has to be good. It should be good programming. That's the key.
Yeah, and yeah, and you can't. There are some panels that, because I'm one of those people nowadays who I will go to a con exclusively just to be on programming.
Right.
I'm only just starting to go as a vendor because I haven't really had enough product until now. And so there are some panels that I'm on that are packed constantly, and they're
Sam Beiko is the editor of some 200 novels and the author
graphic
of
novels, yeah, and the author of The Lake in the Library and Scion of the Fox, which are young adult fantasy.
Available now.
Yeah, wow. But
This podcast brought to you by.
yeah, and but that programming that's super packed is usually the things that people in the audience are interested in developing themselves on. It's usually panels that, and again, I attend a lot of writing conferences and publishing conferences.
This is great. I wanted to talk about that. So, When Words Collide.
Right.
Right.
They're a huge programming.
They're great for
conference.
programming.
Yeah.
Lots. And what I find the people who attend it are people who want to make things.
Yeah.
They want to make genre, and so they're there to figure out the ingredients that go into good genre.
Yeah, because it's publishing itself can be kind of a mire. It's like, where do you start? I mean, the way I started was going down to McNally and buying a Publishing for Idiots book because, again, I had no friggin' clue what I was doing. So a lot of the packed panels that I'm on are like, how do I submit a query letter? How
Right.
do I even get to the point where a publisher's talking to me? How do I land an agent? How do I craft my pitch so that it's inviting?
This is
that kind
absent
of
from
stuff.
comic book programming, I find.
Okay.
Comic book shows, I don't
Like
see
how
a lot
to
of this.
how to enter into the industry
I don't
in a
see a lot of
traditional
that.
way.
People will talk about, they'd rather they'd rather put in the programming 5 Green Lantern artists talking about drawing Green Lantern to a room of 100 people. When if they ask people, how'd you get started drawing comics, you'd probably have 1,000 people in
Okay.
that room.
Right.
Okay.
And especially a lot of these guests that are frontlining a lot of these events, they have been in it for almost 20 plus years, the majority of the time. And it has changed so drastically, especially in comics. And yeah, it's very mystifying. And a lot of people are just doing it themselves now because they're just like, it's just too aggravating to even get into the industry. So might as well just not wait and just start now.
Yeah.
But then that brings up more questions. How do you start as a comic artist by just putting your stuff out there? How do you build a platform? How do you utilize conventions to the best of your ability to further a brand that's like brand new?
So Sam has wandered back up into the 7th floor here at our secret headquarters. She doesn't know we're going to put a microphone in her hand. This is marvelous. Let me ask you a question without any preparation.
Right.
What 3 things do you think go into making a really good convention experience? Not to the vendor or the exhibitor, but to the attendee.
To the attendee. First and foremost, probably listening to the people who are going to be interested in going in the first place and kind of being like, okay, well, what is it that they want to see first and foremost? It's probably one. Which leads into like a good communication with your attendees and not giving them the wrong information on the day of the event.
Well,
I sent some subtext.
No. But I was just saying this over the course of the whole event, because I was just saying to Greg that that's a major problem at almost every convention I've been to, is that unless like you there's no real way to know what's going on unless you're really like tied in, and most people are not like plugged into the social media or everything. They need to know, kind of at a glance what's going on where, so they can make a decision as far as what they want to do, because there's so much going on.
And those program guides are usually an afterthought, not created by someone who knows how to do an infographic.
And what I also find is that it's almost like as the convention is happening, like that weekend, all of a sudden the organizers have blacked out communication because they're so busy running the show.
Yes, right.
So it's like you need to have like a ground crew. That's another thing that comes in. It's like really good volunteers and really good just people who are kind of managing the actual event, where you can just kind of turn to them and they'll know everything and know where things are and know what's happening as an attendee, because you're just walking into this. Sometimes it's enormous and it's really overwhelming, and maybe you don't have any idea there's programming, or you don't have, there's a costume contest, or that there's going to be a social after. You have no idea any of this stuff is happening. So you're relying on the people that have the lanyards that say volunteer or organizer or something.
I always make the mistake of I put everything on the website, but I always make the mistake of assuming that everybody goes to the website.
Yeah, no.
No one goes to the website.
No one goes to the
website.
Well, there's no one. Yeah, people don't go to the website. They'll go to the website if they're angry later.
Yes, that's right. Or your social media for sure.
Yeah. But they usually just show up. So if you are going to,
sorry, we didn't get the third thing from you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
You snuck away.
I didn't sneak away.
No, I interrupted.
You pushed me away.
I did. It was my fault. So you said.
I said.
Listen to the people.
Listen to your attendees and what they like, especially if you're like a long-running show and you've had a show last year and they're like, maybe you should change it this year.
Yep.
Take those things into account. Communicating with them throughout as the show is going on. And just basically making sure that these spaces always stay inclusive, because I find that with this is a topic that comes up constantly, like in geek culture and with any subculture, there's always going to be some class or group of people in that group who are like, we are the ones who know the most and we are going to hold the keys to the kingdom. And a lot of these things, there should be no keys. It should be open to all. So just always kind of being aware that there are probably people with either disabilities or with social anxieties that are, they are still making the effort to come out, and just making sure that those spaces stay safe for them and they don't have tromping in and being like, your cosplay sucks and you're an idiot and I know more about Green Lantern than you do, so get the F out. And booting those people or making them feel that they don't hold the megaphone. They shouldn't hold the megaphone.
Right.
Cool. So yeah.
Okay. Well,
what I like to say is those are all excellent ideas. I think of, when you ask that question, I think in terms of more specific, the things that bring me to a convention from an attendee's point of view are the programming. I think probably the vendors come last on that list. Mm-hmm. The people. Other people who attend the con is a huge part of it. That to me is probably the best.
Cosplayers.
Well, cosplayers are great, but the best people are just everybody else who comes. And I love that you can just go, wander around, stop at a table, and then jump into a conversation about Star Wars or something else, and everyone's on board. You can't really have those conversations in everyday life, although sometimes with Star Wars it's becoming more and more common. But yeah, you don't like. You just kind of can't geek out with everybody the way you can at a convention.
That's right. When the officer taps on my window and asks for my license and registration, I can't be like, man, did you see the new episode of Orville?
But you never know. He might say, yeah.
Yeah, that's
it was
true.
Awesome.
Super Popes.
We just had an event.
Yes,
we just had a small event.
You guys just put on an event.
I don't know. Justin's asking, how did we do? He doesn't have a microphone.
Me?
Yeah, how did we do?
Oh.
Now you're on the spot.
Well, I'll just get it out of the way. You did really great. It was a really great event. And this is something that you have talked about a lot and when you talk about artist alleys and stuff, you just show up as if you've been doing it for years and just kind of maybe put that front on. And that was funny because you put on this big, beautiful craft market in your building.
Without meaning to.
Yeah.
It happened by accident, sort of.
It happened by accident.
Yeah, and in this space that's basically abandoned. Like it's like the rest of the building has been all like renovated beautifully, and then this room is like like it's just gonna shave off of the building, just
true.
fall into the earth.
The brickwork. Yeah, it's true.
But
it's true.
so it's like this kind of like industrialized, semi-finished space, and then when you put all these artists in there, it was like magnificent, and people were coming in and being like, "Oh, so you've been putting this event on for like years?" Like, how many years have you guys? And it was like, yeah, like they just jumped right to years, not even, oh, you've been putting this on for a couple months. It was just, it had already smacked of being a well-organized, well-oiled, established market, which is...
Well, that's. I'm a little nervous to hear you say that. Because now we have to live up to that.
That's from attendees.
Yeah, from attendees.
And from the people who were...
vendors. Give us the vendors.
People who were there as vendors, it was also extremely smooth. It was actually kind of frighteningly so how smooth it was. We were all just set up early and just kind of mystified and being like, oh, we're here and wow, how did this happen?
Well, and what we were doing, we weren't setting out to set up a show. There was this big empty space and we had access to it. And the building manager said that we could rent it at a day rate, which to us was exciting. And we had done a event in Winnipeg. We have a thing called First Fridays. So down in the Exchange District, studios and galleries open their doors for regular walk-in traffic, and it's become a destination.
Fun night. There's dozens and dozens of studios and galleries and shops. They all do something special for First Friday, so you really make a whole evening of it.
So we had done one at our own space, and then we thought, well, that was so great, but we can't just do our space again. What could we do that is a little different for people who are attending? So there's no Justin Greg fatigue. Yeah. And then we said, well, let's see if any of the other talented folks that we know want to come and exhibit. And then before we knew it, we had 30 people, 40 people who wanted to do it. And we just had to sort of first come, first serve. And the only vetting that we did was that if like the first two jewelry people that said they were interested, right? I didn't let other jewelry people come in after that. The first, novelist that wanted or was interested, we didn't let any more in after that. That sort of thing. We just, because it was a small space and we only had room for 15, 17 little vendors. And if it's all the same thing, then the person who attends just feels like, oh, this is just a book fair. But if they come and they could get, a hand-drawn or a hand-painted piece of art, they could get a 3D printed steel pendant, they could get a handmade bone necklace, they could get a book or a graphic novel or a print.
Or a tiny koi pond in a seashell.
Or a tiny koi pond in a seashell, which was pretty amazing.
Great.
Then people would come and feel that the experience, even if it wasn't something that they bought, maybe they're only there to buy a comic, or maybe only there to buy art, they would find something new.
Sorry, right? I just want to jump in here. I think I was going to ask you guys, is this, like, you guys go to shows all the time, you sell your stuff there. Is this as much of a marketing tool for you for people who want to buy stuff later? Like, do you find people come to you after the fact?
Yes.
And say, I couldn't afford to get that print when I saw you last week, but now it's payday and I have some extra cash. I'd like to buy that from you now.
I sold 3 printed canvases at our market on Friday to people who had come to our First Friday event the previous month and had regretted not purchasing it then.
So this
watched
is
on social media to see when we would appear next, and then we're really excited that it was open again, and they came rushing back.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, I was just because that's the sense I got again with FanQuest. Just kind of I realized how many of these artists and vendors were like gaining future sales by just being in the space and having people come in and just discover them in the marketplace, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And for me, for the product that I sell, it's also available in other places. So a lot of like me going to these and as a vendor now, and again, it's something that I'm starting to do on my own, is just so that I can meet people and talk to people about the stuff that I do. And if they don't have the money at the time, just be like, well, you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it in your local indie. You can, you can go elsewhere. A lot of people will come up to me like they did at C4, and they got my information and they ordered like class sets because I didn't have enough stock for them to buy 40 books at the time. So they were like, well, rather than deplete you, I'll just order them directly from your publisher, sort of thing.
So even looking at shows like that as an advertising cost, and we often talk about that, we do as many shows locally as we can.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because like just to sell stuff and make money, but it's about those future sales and those future endeavors and opportunities. And we're really starting to see that more and more because we do every single event that we can and people see us more and more. Like it's paying off.
If you're wearing your business hat,
Yeah.
right, you have to ask yourself, what would it cost you to get a targeted ad to a few thousand people that fit exactly into your demographic?
Yeah.
Right? So if you're picking your shows correctly, even if you sold no things, but you had a great display, then you have purchased a targeted ad to those people, and that has a long future for you.
For sure.
So we're passing the mic back and forth. I would say a more effective targeted ad than something you would buy on Facebook for the same amount of money.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence about Facebook and social media advertising. I think it has its place, but
You can tune in to Business BFS podcast.
There you
all
go.
about that.
There you
Can't
go.
we, Sam?
Yeah, you can.
But I think that the in-person experience is much more relevant and meaningful for somebody. Even if they just pass by your table and they don't talk to you and they just see, oh, wow, look at all this stuff, that makes more of an impression than the little box on the side of the web page to me. So
Yeah.
we got to wrap things up.
Okay. Well, thank
Sorry,
you for being
we're
a
getting to the,
sudden
to the hour
special
markers.
guest. This has been Super Pulp Science. So we were talking about what goes into making genre, what goes into making conventions, and whether or not we should replace Justin with Sam Beiko as our regular co-host.
I'll start singing, I promise.
Join the fight. Make comics.